I'm in love with small reports and informational pieces that position myself in a marketplace or position my clients in a marketplace so that they get more customers, attract better prospects, and become the authority in a marketplace. Hi, this is Justin Hitt with Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips. Let's talk today with helping your clients get more from the marketplace. So let's say you've got a client who is a politician and they're looking for votes. They might also be looking to position themselves around certain issues. Well, how can they do that in a simple and effective way? Well, most politicians will go do stump speeches, and you could write speeches for them, but they can also do it through position papers or books. How many books has President Obama had written? Well, there's several books. The most recent book talks about himself. Most of these political books talk about themselves, but ultimately they're meant to establish a position in a way that doesn't require travel, that reaches as many people as possible. And in the case of politicians, if you've ever seen my special report on this, in the case of politicians, it helps them raise money through a wider area of sources. Now, you can help with the copywriting of the book itself. You could be a ghostwriter. You could help with the marketing of the book itself. You could help with the research to make sure the book covers topics that are relevant to the constituents or the audience. And you can even support the ongoing marketing of that book and positioning that person as an authority. So the political market is a great market for small reports and books. Now, when I say small reports, I mean literally it can be a 4-page report. The key is you want to find clients who have an authority position. So your lawyers, your doctors, your business owners, your individuals who deliver services that are complex enough that they're difficult to understand. Could a builder, custom home builder, have a book that helps them position as the authority for a certain style of home? Well, they certainly could. Could a copywriter have a book that positions them as somebody who can write sales letters? You certainly could. The key is the client's interests is second to their customer's buying decision. Now, this is very important. You're going to take on a client, and they're going to want a book about them and about all the important things. That's fine for a politician, but it doesn't get the vote. In order to get the vote, you need to have the interests of their audience in mind. And the book or report cannot be so broad as to serve everybody. So let's say you're going to write a report for an estate planning attorney. The estate planning attorney has a giant list of questions that are commonly asked prior to setting up a trust, will, or medical directive. And ultimately, if these questions were answered, his clients would be more inclined to get started right away. Now, we're missing a lot of information. You would need to help that attorney determine who are their clients. A high-income professional who has a retirement account that's on track, they have children, they have a home, maybe even a vacation home, their questions about estate planning are going to be different than somebody who simply wants a medical directive so that they don't end up on life support and that their money goes to their favorite charity. There are different aspects. A large family is going to have a different concern than a small family. Now, what's great about writing reports and writing books is that you can write a book or report, and I'm just going to say reports because a report is very fast to put together. You can write a report for a specific audience, and then that same client, you can take the same materials, the same research, and write that report for another audience. So 7 common estate questions big families ask about. 12 common questions family business owners ask about. 2 different books both have the same core concepts. Both reports can position that same attorney as an expert in both areas because now we're using media that can be delivered physically to an individual rather than post on a website or their social media presence. Now, here's something that's real important that a lot of folks don't consider. As a copywriter, you need to help your client understand that the more they advertise in public, the easier it is for their competitors to knock them off. And what will happen is they'll end up chasing every new medium. So, hey, we have a blog, we had great blog traffic, and then suddenly no blog traffic. Let's try to increase traffic on social media. We had great followers on social media. We had great engagement, but we still got no customers and no traffic. Well, folks, it is a long and winding road of fear and frustration to chase down these different mediums when you could have created a report that was sent to a specific mailing list. In fact, you don't even send the report to the mailing list. You would send a lead generation piece to the mailing list. Now, a lot of you folks know this. You know this. You're a copywriter. You understand direct response. You could rent a list, send a letter to the list, and everybody who raises their hand gets the report. And then the report positions the individual as a professional, as an expert, as the authority, as somebody with experience, and then ultimately makes an offer. Now, a report can be similar to a sales letter, but I like reports that address mistakes, that address common questions, that address planning, how to hire an estate planner, how to choose a politician that will serve your interests, how to buy off politicians. You can technically make an official report that shows your authority without actually telling somebody how to do something. But again, as a copywriter, marketer, or business development professional, for your industry, what reports would help position them as the go-to people to solve specific problems? And really is about solving problems. Or more importantly, it's about demonstrating that the client can solve problems. And that's why we write these reports for audiences, for niches. We don't write them for the client. If they're going to work, they have to be written for a decision maker in an audience. So the estate planning attorney doesn't write a report for people in general. They write for the big family or the family that owns a business. It could be for the high net worth family. It could be for the high-income family. It could be for the simple affluent family. But that audience doesn't call themselves by these names. A high-net-worth individual doesn't walk around telling people they're a high-net-worth individual. So the report must draw out of those people through their fears and concerns what they want, so they'll read the report, which then will position the individual in a way that's meaningful to the audience. Take this home with you, because understanding this, you could be writing reports. Now, a report takes a little bit more work, but it's a 5-figure job. So if you've got a client who's an attorney and they write one report for family-owned businesses, owners of family-owned businesses, and you want to avoid the conflicts that could destroy the business. You want to avoid the family members jockeying for ownership. You want to have your wills, your desires in place long past your death so that this business becomes a reflection of your great works. That's a different story. However, you can now get another assignment with that customer. So do some customer analysis with them. Maybe they discover the family-owned business is a good customer, but there's not a lot of them out there. Well, you can go through and find out that maybe affluent customers are another good, valuable customer of theirs. Now, again, it could be a bankruptcy attorney who has a quick guide to your bankruptcy. And that guide is for general use, and it's given out at the credit counseling agency. So it doesn't have to be a big book. It doesn't have to be a small report. It could even be a bullet point guide. I recently wrote 25 Virginia native trees for a nonprofit. Now, it was literally a list of 25 Virginia native trees sorted alphabetically with text about how to identify those trees. The audience was a user of a hiking trail. So this could be a family with no interest in trees, or it could be someone who regularly hikes and sights trees. But the key was I needed to have language that was easy to understand for both audiences, and it had to fit in a brochure, a Slim Jim brochure format. Now, 25 trees required a 4-panel brochure in tiny, tiny font. And I suggested to the client that if they're going to do this again, they would want to use a booklet. So we're actually going to take the materials from the 25 that I created for one nonprofit individual, and I'm going to turn around and reuse those materials for another nonprofit to create a guide. So one interesting thing about reports is if a client doesn't want to write a big report, that's okay. You can write a small report that gets them positioned. Now, again, you could go all the way down and write articles for them, featured length articles, but I like the fact of having a physical book-like element or report-like element because, again, it portrays that ingrained authority. There's a reason why religious organizations hand out tracts. They're physical tracts. Doesn't require any technology. It's in your hand. There's no pop-up ads, no distractions, no pornography on the internet. It's essentially a distraction-free resource to convey your key points. And it's a huge opportunity for copywriters, marketers, and business development professionals. If you're writing these for your clients, the research you take to put into that report can create other reports or supplemental materials that could mean a longer, more valuable customer relationship. In fact, you could become an expert in that particular topic simply creating these reports for your clients. Now, there are other income streams here that we could talk about. White labeling, for example. You can write reports that you simply have a client wrap a cover around. So for a lot of local market folks, I saw a great report called Before You Buy a Used Car that was for a new car dealership that explained the things you need to look for in a used car or to avoid in a used car, but then suggested that very often you can have brand new cars at reasonable prices so that the warranties and the extras that you get are actually outweigh the cheapness of a used car. That booklet itself was actually licensed to dealerships on a regional basis where the dealership owner could simply just put their cover on it. And basically they would give it was the same contents of the book, except the cover and the attribution page was different. I've seen tips booklets, for example, used. Very simple, at a checkout, tips booklet in a health food store that basically had tips related to diabetes. And they actually had a bunch of these booklets. I didn't pull all the booklets, but I was standing there and looked at it. And it was a very simple pamphlet, tips booklet, maybe 8 pages that said, here are the diabetes warnings, here are the things to look out for, and then had a list of products to consider that were relevant and useful for that. Now, they had multiple booklets, and I did flip through the booklets, but didn't take a lot of time. They were all basically the same format. Mistakes to avoid, indicators or symptoms to look for, and then key herbs and products that you might want to consider to address those situations. I don't know how many copywriters are out there, and I suspect they're not really broadcasting this, but there's a lot of copywriters out there that are simply writing reports, and they're writing the reports over and over again. And if you've been in the industry for a while, especially I collect information marketing materials, you'll often find the contents of, well, there was a big thing on public domain a while back, but the contents of these books are pretty much the same. It's just how they're marketed and who wrote them is different. But that's a great opportunity. It means less work for you. It means more authority for your clients. And it means reaching a marketplace. Now, if you want to talk about the licensing and joint ventures opportunities, there are a few markets where I've already written materials, and I'd happy to do a co-author deal. That's one way that, for example, Bob Bly does a lot of co-author deals. If you have certain materials that you want to make into kind of a franchise type of product where someone else can get the resale rights or the master resale rights, there's a whole scammy world of that, but there's actually a legitimate world there as well, because many of your clients are not going to want to pay for a custom book, but they'll certainly pay for a report or a book that positions them, that's available to them exclusive in their marketplace. And the last consideration is, how do you position yourself? Could you use reports? Could you use authority materials directly targeting specific audiences to position yourself as an expert? Well, if you want to talk about any of this or more, I'm available at www.adbriefings.co.uk. As a member of Ad Briefings Copywriting Tips, we have Q&A sessions, and we can talk the specifics of how to transform the knowledge in your head into resources and materials that clients pay you to put together. And then depending on your agreement, you could also continue to use for years to come, whether it's your own product or it is a product that you white label to your customers. I want to thank you for listening. I'm always open to your questions and success stories. I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefing's copywriting tips at www.adbriefings.co.uk.